Water.
Sensational.
Earth. Fire. Air. 4 nations lived together in harmony.
Anita Max win.
Everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all 4 elements, could stop them. When the world needed him most, he vanished.
Yo, I'm at the point, even if y'all say Drake ain't win, I'm rooting for any nigga that can Kendrick up. I'm tired of this shit. He got rappers sounding like
Happy New Year, family and friends. We are not even 2 days into 2025 and Kendrick is already back on the clock. But this time he won't be bringing those boogeyman beatdowns to the Canadian coast. Instead, he'll be channeling one of his greatest inspirations, Tupac Shakur, reincarnating the infamous West Coast versus East Coast beef. Now, I'm partially kidding because in reality, I don't think Kendrick Lamar has to respond to this. And that's for 2 reasons. Number 1, this wasn't that serious of a shot, and it wasn't just a shot at Kendrick. And number 2, as great of a rapper as Joey Bada is, it's not that serious of competition for Kendrick. And again, not because he's a bad rapper by any means necessary. We're going to delve into why Kendrick doesn't need to respond to this and why it wasn't that serious of a shot by Joey. But of course, most importantly, we're going to be breaking down every bar that could be a shot in this song and why none of it is worth responding to if you're in Kendrick Lamar's position. But just so we're clear, this definitely was a shot. Don't get it confused for a second. Yes, this was a F the whole West Coast. Yes, this was a I feel like I'm overlooked, so I'm bringing some more competitive energy. But this was just as much of a direct like, hey buddy, I've been swinging at you for a while, so let me be as clear as possible here. I want all the smoke. So let's break this new song down first and all the bars for Kendrick and the West Coast that came with it. Now, I had a lot of these bars broken down for you guys. I've been sick for the last few days, so I've just been bumping this repeatedly. And I had some notes on everything, a couple of things that I came across, but then I came across this Twitter thread that was cooking like a Michelin chef. So we're going to break down this guy's breakdown. I'm going to leave his Twitter in the description of this video. Highly request that you guys follow him because he did great work here, but also because just like me, this guy has under 35 followers on Twitter. Now, his username is DJesusLVDawn. Matter of fact, follow us both. I'm going to leave my Twitter in the description too. Let's see if you guys can bring both of us to 100 followers on Twitter. That would be blessed. So let's get into it. Firstly, if you were doubting for a second that Joey is speaking directly to Kendrick here, it definitely wasn't like a malicious diss like F you, but it was definitely a hey, let's squabble up. I mean, you could tell right off the bat, look at the visuals of this thing, right? Like he's doing this dance where he's kind of leaning back, surfing in midair. Who else have you seen do this dance? That's right, you saw Kendrick Lamar do it at the pop-out as he was performing Not Like Us. And ironically, Kendrick was imitating his opponent, the guy who he threw shots at, Drake, who did this same exact dance in his Hotline Bling music video. Some dancing inception going on here, and let me know who you think hit this dance the best. Now, firstly, this song is called The Ruler's Back, which is an ode to Jay-Z, and Joey pays several different tributes to Jay-Z throughout this record, and the title referencing the intro track to Jay-Z's classic album, The Blueprint. Now, on the Blueprint's track list, the song The Ruler's Back is followed up by the next song, Takeover, which, as you guys probably know, is Jay-Z's diss song against Nas. So is this Joey's way to tell us that the next song coming after his The Ruler's Back will be a full-on diss song as well? I guess we'll have to wait and see, but another little Easter egg that this Twitter user noticed was that Jay-Z got the title The Ruler's Back from Slick Rick's song, The Ruler's Back, and on Slick Rick's version, he rapped, and hold on because the driver of the mission is a pro. The rap collective that Joey Bada came up under was called Pro Era. R.I.P. Capital Steez. So Joey's declaring himself king of New York, challenging the entire West Coast, sending these little warning shots on a song called The Ruler's Back, a song bearing the same title as the Jay-Z song that came right before Takeover, his diss track against a rap titan, and paying homage to a Slick Rick song where he declares that the driver of the mission is a pro. So maybe this is Joey saying that he's in the driver's seat, steering New York back to the top of the hip-hop throne, and the mission to kill the West Coast will be conducted by none other than the Pro Era member himself. Then he points out that Joey begins his set of shots at Kendrick by combating Kendrick's self-proclaimed title as Mr. Get Off. On Squabble Up, Kendrick rapped Mr. Get Off, I Get Off and Mop Feet, and on The Ruler's Back, Joey rapped Mr. Really Put That On, They Be Counterfeit. So if Kendrick's Mr. Get Off, Joey is Mr. Really Put That On. Probably a reference to him really putting on for the East Coast. Then Joey flips Kendrick's Whacked Out Murals record by rapping I got murals in my city, F a nomination, This for every time they left me out the conversation. And this is a big theme within Joey's entire career, really. We're going to touch on this later in the video, but in the meantime, him rapping F a nomination is similar to Drake rapping Kendrick opened his mouth, someone go hand him a Grammy right now. I don't believe Joey has ever won a Grammy. Meanwhile, Kendrick's out here winning Pulitzer Prizes. And Joey's saying, like, I put on for my city. I have murals out here. They love me out here. The love here trumps any sort of nomination, any sort of award I could get from the industry. And J. Cole had similar thoughts on his diss track against Kendrick Lamar's 7-Minute Drill when he rapped, F the Grammys, cause those Ritz crackers ain't ever done nothing for me. And in terms of Joey being left out of the conversation, it's funny because on his recent album, 2000, he rapped, who the best MCs? Kenny, Joey, and Cole, the Holy Trinity. He's shown love to Kendrick for a long time.
I feel like Kendrick represents authenticity. There's a long list of, the great things that he represents. I appreciate him for being a part of this rap game, a part of hip-hop history, because before we had him, we was really in a critical condition. I've been a fan since 15. I'm like one of those fans that's like, now the whole world want to get up on him. Like, y'all this is late. It's also different for me because now I'm one of the best rappers in the world myself. It's competition.
He's been appreciating and recognizing Kendrick's talent for a while now. They came up around the same era too. And that's a big reason why I believe this is not something Kendrick needs to respond to, but we're going to touch on that later. In the meantime, side note, it's funny that he didn't put Drake in that big three when he mentioned him, Kendrick, and Cole. But while Joey has definitely shown love to both Kendrick and Cole, he's also thrown shots at both of them since the beginning of his career, always maintaining that competitive spirit. On his song Illuminati, he rapped, what, you're trying to be Vito? Well, there's rules to this stuff. Don't get clapped. Y'all ain't real spitters, y'all lips chapped. Better watch it, Mr. Nice Watch, don't risk that. Here he's talking about how J. Cole wanted to be like his mentor Jay-Z, aka Jovito, and referencing Cole and Jay's song together called Mr. Nice Watch. That song dates back to 2011, so that should let you know how long Joey has been pulling these rappers' cards, alright? He's nothing to play with. Now, that was Illuminati Part 1, but what's funny is on Illuminati Part 2, that was the first time Joey actually confronted Kendrick Lamar, as he was one of the many rappers that responded to Kendrick's Control verse way back in 2013. And just like Joey rapping in 2024 on this record saying, I got murals in my city, F a nomination, this for every time they left me out the conversation, he was most definitely left out that 2013 conversation when Kendrick Lamar name dropped every rapper in the game who he thought was doing their thing, he thought was leading the new generation, basically saying, not necessarily F them all, but when you think hip-hop, when you think this new school, I want to undoubtedly be at the top of that list. He named Drake, J. Cole, Pusha T, A$AP Rocky, Mac Miller, and a lot more, but most notably, Kendrick left Joey Badass off that list, a young Joey who had just released, in my opinion, his classic project 1999, and Joey most definitely felt overlooked back then and also took a bit of offense to Kendrick declaring himself the king of New York on that Control verse. As on Illuminati Part 2, Joey rapped, and I'm still a beast with these flows, feeling real low, my tree self-esteem roll, we drowning out Atlantis, can't overflow Beast Coast, be more specific next time you shouting out amigo, I am not the star, in fact I'm Planet Awe, F what the media write, this is a fire bar. Please don't leave your comment if you are not up to par. No names, putting you in a verse, that's too far. Your mundane can't obtain the knowledge of my brain. My set told me light you up, so this is that propane. It's Nathan, all I gotta do is just spit a flame. No escaping you in a swimming pool of champagne, which is obviously in reference to Kendrick's track Swimming Pools. Then he rapped, you set yourself up for that one, Maine. The king of New York? Ha. We're not gonna let that one hang. Last guy got dethroned and you ain't even from my zone. The rest of the real guys is dead and gone. So obviously Joey was ready for the smoke back then, but ironically a couple of years later he did a freestyle over Kendrick and J-Rock's song King's Dead, where he rapped, you guys worried about the crown, F it, you can tell them clowns, they can keep it. Seemingly not too concerned about obtaining that spot amongst hip-hop royalty, but in 2024, or matter of fact 2025, Joey's coming with way different energy. So on this new track, The Ruler's Back, Joey also raps, I'm back by popular demand and world domination, I'm finna bomb on guys' plans, fresh off my vacation, I'm on full attack, East Coast guy till I die, it's clear who the heir, apparent king of NY. Basically saying like, it's clear who's next up as the king of New York. And what this guy on Twitter noted is that in The Ruler's Back, Joey is making reference to World Domination, which is a track off his 1999 album called World Domination, and on that track he rapped, till I draw enough static in my somatic anatomy and come out imputed with fusions of blueprints and illmatics. Definitely a goat with his wordplay, and on this new song, The Ruler's Back, he's referencing both those albums, The Blueprint and Illmatic. Then Joey continues to rap, too much West Coast D-licking, I'm hearing guys throwing rocks, really? Ain't stuff sticking. Cause if we're talking bar for bar, really it's slim pickings. Obviously, too much West Coast D-licking is in reference to the massive year that the West Coast had, most notably from Kendrick and Tyler the Creator, and all the love and attention that Kendrick has put onto the West Coast. 2024 definitely felt like the year of highlighting West Coast talent. And what's interesting is that after Tyler released his latest project, Chromacopia, where he declared himself the biggest in the West after Kendrick, many people were debating if he had now replaced J. Cole in that big three conversation. Joey Bada here raps that nothing's sticking. Tyler on Chromacopia had a song called Sticky. J. Cole, who also threw stones and hit his hand, rapped on that song where he threw stones and then hit his hand, 7-minute drill, saying, fly pebbles at your dome, we the Stone Temple pilots. So Joey rapping, I'm hearing guys throwing rocks, really ain't stuff sticking, could be a reference to both Tyler and J. Cole, but also obviously a reference to Kendrick, who threw stones early in the year in 2024 at the entire Big Three, and as a result, won the battle against Drake, which resultingly caused a lot of the quote-unquote West Coast D-licking to later ensue that Joey is talking about. This bar is also another reference to Jay-Z, because on Jay-Z's song 22 Twos, he rapped, too much West Coast D-licking and too many guys on a mission doing your best Jay-Z rendition. And this obviously came at a time when the West Coast was on a generational run. You had Tupac dropping like 3 albums that year. Obviously you had Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg giving us back-to-back classics with Doggy Style and The Chronic. Ice Cube was on his run. So the West was obviously on a generational run, and Jay-Z was there to combat it. Just like Joey's trying to do now to put his hometown back on the map.
The East Coast don't love Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Y'all don't love us.
And I think I was still in my mother's womb when that song first came out, but you guys let me know in the comments how the sentiment was in hip-hop when Jay-Z rapped those bars. But obviously he showed improved, and hopefully Joey does the same. Anyways, Joey continues to rap, that black Air Force energy coming out from your speaker, I'm out your reach, your arms too short to box the Elohim. And here he's obviously talking to Kendrick, but making reference to a couple different things. That black Air Force energy that he's talking about is probably a reference to the cover art of Kendrick's single Watch the Party Die, which featured a picture of dusty black Air Force Ones, which were likely meant to represent him stomping out Drake and everything negative that Drake embodied, and he was now reflecting on watching the party, the essence of what Drake represented, die. Joey here is saying he's coming with that same black Air Force One energy, but he's saying that Kendrick's arms are too short to box with him. The Elohim that Joey refers to himself as is another callback to Kendrick, who's called himself the Elohim multiple times, most notably on his diss record against Drake, 616 in LA, where he raps, the Elohim KTW, no you can't sleep, these images trouble you. And if you guys know what he was talking about when he said the KTW, let me know in the comments. I think that's still up for debate to this day. Just to emphasize how many little Easter eggs were in those Kendrick disses. We're still trying to decode them months later. And that whole bar that Joey rapped, I'm out your reach, your arms too short to box the Elohim, is also a callback to both Nas and J. Cole, as on Nas's album Stillmatic, he had a song called You're the Man, where he rapped your arms too short to box with the God. This was the same album that featured his diss track against Jay-Z, Ether. So it's cool that Joey referenced both Jay-Z and Nas's diss tracks and the albums they were featured on, but he's also referencing J. Cole, as on J. Cole's diss track against Kendrick, Might Delete Later, he also rapped your arms might be too short to box with the God. And this Elohim bar is not the only reference Joey Badass makes to Kendrick's 616 in LA record, as this song, The Ruler's Back, was actually released at 6:16 Pacific time, which is the time zone in LA. Joey continues rapping, it won't stop till the crowd sing, when I'm crowned king, my aura scream and my style ring, this ain't boom bap, this that boom bow bing. Many people think this is in reference to Kendrick's song Peekaboo, where he raps, bing bop, boom 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 bop bam. And I mean, I don't know, I guess we're throwing subliminals in sound effects now, but I'm cool with it. And finally, Joey concludes the shots at Kendrick by rapping, here I come, I'm nowhere near done with you, letting Kendrick know that there's definitely more on the way. And the West Coast definitely heard these shots. Kendrick's affiliate, his childhood friend, and fellow LA artist who made an appearance on his album GNX, Hit a J3, sent out a bunch of tweets when this record was released. He said, Tell Joey try again. K-Dot's a lyrical menace. The boy ain't been through enough to F with the gang. Beat up one goofy on camera and think he ready to beat on his chest. We F with Rocky more anyways. He must be mad about the Dodgers winning. That stuff don't deserve a response. And whether or not Kendrick does respond, again, I don't think he will. I don't think he necessarily needs to. But I think Joey's doing this more for the overall love of hip-hop and the competition that comes with it. This is not no, lawsuit thing. This is not no superstar defending their legacy type thing like it was with Drake. This is a rapper who feels like he hasn't got his just due and who's tired of his hometown not getting enough of the spotlight. And I've seen many people say that this is because of Joey Bada's affiliation with 50 Cent, who has been an avid Drake defender since this whole battle ensued. Joey was featured on one of 50 Cent's Power spin-offs, so it's possible that he took a page out of 50 Cent's playbook, and 50 may have gotten his ear to tell him, like, look, go at that guy with the crown right now, because he's not just making Drake look bad, he's making the whole East Coast look bad by uniting his side and elevating the entire West Coast. But in my opinion, like, if Kendrick was going to respond, this whole back and forth should have happened during the Control era. Joey dropping a response back then was a lot more fitting for several different reasons. Firstly, he's a couple months late, dropping this response track months after the battle already died out. Kendrick already declared that he's watching the party die. I mean, a whole calendar year has already passed. I get the sentiment, dropping this on the first day of the year, and I like that energy. I love that. But I can't help but think this would have been a whole lot better if he dropped this while Kendrick was still dropping consistent diss tracks one after the other in that whole little stretch between like April and May, especially after he rapped on Euphoria saying, what I learned is people don't like the West Coast and I'm fine with it, I'll push the line with it, pick them apart one at a time with it. If Joey wanted the smoke, that would have been a more appropriate time to come and get it, but even then, I don't know if it would have been on Kendrick's list of priorities to come after a guy like Joey Bada for many reasons, right? Firstly, while yes, hip-hop is a competitive sport, it's great to see rappers sparring against each other, battling for that throne. I think Kendrick had a personal vendetta against Drake. I don't think he wants to kill an artist like Joey. I don't think he wants to even kill an artist like J. Cole. I think he hates what Drake stood for, the influence that he brought to the culture, and his main purpose of this battle was to peel the curtain back behind the negativity of an artist like Drake being at the top of the game and having the influence that he had. I don't think he would have seen it as being as productive, spending his time tearing down an artist like Joey Bada, who has always been a positive addition to the culture. And beyond that, as great of an artist as Joey is, as great of an impact as he's had on the culture, I don't think he's really even worthy enough of a response from Kendrick for the same reason that Hidda J3 said he's not worthy of a response. He hasn't been through enough. That's why I was saying it would have made a lot more sense for Kendrick to respond to Illuminati 2 after the Control verse during that era, because back then, Joey had just dropped his best project, 1999. The hype for him was through the roof. He was definitely at the forefront of the new generation of New York hip-hop with his whole pro-era movement, and he had a valid reason to feel overlooked for not being mentioned by Kendrick on that Control verse. And Kendrick at that time only had one massive album under his belt with Good Kid, Mad City. Yeah, he was still a lot bigger than Joey Bada, but they kind of came up around the same era. They were kind of on that same playing field, so to speak, at that period of time. At this point, Kendrick has went far beyond what Joey Bada has ever accomplished. See, again, that first project, 1999, was great. His debut album, Before the Money, was very solid as well. In my opinion, his sophomore album was even better, All American Badass, but some people thought it was a bit dumbed down. Some people thought that there was a bit too much singing on that album with songs like Temptation or Devastated. I personally loved it, but again, I say all that to say that was way back in 2017, almost 10 years ago at this point. And aside from a couple other projects that didn't necessarily make a fraction of the noise that any Kendrick project had, even a throwaway like an Untitled Unmastered or his Black Panther soundtrack album, to come back almost 10 years later, almost 8 months after this whole beef had ensued, to try to put yourself in it, it seems a little bit too little too late. But at the same time, I think Joey Bada is only like 29 years old at this point, which is crazy to think. That means when he dropped his arguably classic project, 1999, he was only like 16 years old. And as we could see by this new record, The Ruler's Back, he hasn't necessarily lost any of that skill from a technical rapping perspective. So who's to say that he can't go bar for bar with Kendrick? I definitely think he's a little bit more of a worthy opponent than Drake. I just don't see it being worth Kendrick's time, and just doesn't make sense from a logical perspective. I mean, I'd personally rather see Kendrick go at more of the OGs who have been disrespecting him like he did on Whacked Out Murals, and talk about how he feels about, you know, all the comments 50 Cent or Fat Joe or Lil Wayne have made about him, instead of a Joey Bada who has been fairly inactive for at least the last like 5 years. I'd even rather see him go up against like a JID, who's a fairly newcomer but is most definitely a hungry MC battling for that crown for this new generation, hails from J. Cole's Dreamville camp. I think even he'd have a much more interesting back and forth with Kendrick than Joey Bada would this late in his career. But back when Control dropped, this would have been a very different story. Both of them were early in their careers, both of them were hungry, both of them were impeccable MCs, arguably the best of their generation at the time, and both of them respected the art of battle rap and seemingly had that same competitive spirit. But hey, maybe I'm biased and this is the equivalent to Kendrick coming out of silence, taking shots at both Drake and J. Cole on 2024's like that. And regardless, I'm very happy to see all this New York pride, this East Coast pride above anything else. I don't think there's enough artists making noise in New York coming for that title as the king of New York right now, which is depressing to think where this whole thing started at, where some of the greatest legends from the genre have emerged from. Jay-Z, Biggie, Nas, just to name a few. And I mean, in the last few years, can you name me one rapper from the mainstream who we can unanimously dub as the king of New York? I mean, back in the 2010s, we had guys like Joey Bada or A$AP Rocky who were definitely leading that new generation of New York hip-hop, but they've been relatively silent over the last few years. We had Pop Smoke, who unfortunately met his tragic demise back in 2020. We had a Boogie with the Hoodie who went on a decent run, but you know, he's more melody based. I actually thought he was from Atlanta before I knew he was from New York. Obviously there's Cardi B, but she hasn't dropped a project in 6-7 years at this point. So to see someone jump out and say, I'm the king of New York, enough of this West Coast D-licking, I'm here to change that. It's great energy to see on the first day of this new year, starting hip-hop off on the right foot. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Will Kendrick respond? Should he respond? Is this Joey's euphoria? Let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.
There's a lot of little nuggets in both of their disses that if it wasn't for these breakdowns, and salute to, you know, guys like this, Rapaholics, because I think they directly get it.